Well, I feel like we found our theme music. At least the person that made that theme music, I think, is, considering we're both a couple of old school gamers, I think that's a pretty good 8-bit Nintendo sound.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, there's more where that came from, so I'm assuming that we can sit back here and enjoy it while we're waiting to start.
I'm sure most listeners don't know that our two favorite pastimes are working out and playing video games. So if we can combine those, we might be onto something.
I was just about to say that might be another show we could do for.
Maybe you could hook up the old Nintendo to the treadmill, and you can play as you walk, kind of like people walk on the treadmill at work now. They got workstations and all that. Well, maybe we'll have game stations.
I like that. I think trademarked. This is what today is, 5/12/17 at 11:09. Nobody steal that.
No.
There's a timestamp on it. Well, welcome everybody to Reaching the Pinnacle. We are live from the Pinnacle Studios for everybody for this next installment of our show. We don't have a studio audience this time around, but I think there is some work happening to procure tickets to the next show.
I'm sure. We hit out of the park last week with our studio audience, and I figured we'd have a bigger turnout, but maybe next time. We are live, though, so if there is anybody that is listening live and you happen to be on your Spreaker app or on Facebook, go ahead and shoot us a message if you have a question. If you have a topic or anything you want to add to what we're saying, go for it. But with the Spreaker app, I will remind you that there is a chat button. So you hit that chat button, and a little message will pop up, and I will read it, and we will answer your question. So with that said, it's fitting that we're taking this show to talk about the road less traveled, because I just recently purchased a motorcycle, and I didn't realize that riding it is going to make my whole body feel like I fell down some stairs. So, especially if you get hit by somebody on it.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and I am totally safe and totally uninjured. This is just riding by itself.
Yep.
So. But
it's fitting, yeah.
Yeah. So what do we mean by taking the road less traveled?
Well, I think we need to frame the discussion today again around advanced training, okay? So if you're out there listening and this is your first year in the gym, or your first week in the gym, or really your first 2 or 3 years in the gym probably, this may not be information that's that pertinent to you.
Right. But save it. Don't not listen. Save it.
Keep it for later.
Yes.
This is more for somebody who is really looking to maximize their efficiency when they're training, stay injury-free as much as they can, avoid injuries. So somebody who's in a more of an advanced level and is maybe at a sticking point, or is just dealing with, again, injuries, or not necessarily catastrophic injuries,
right,
but just the nagging, the shoulder joints, the elbow joints, the knee,
maybe a little tendinitis somewhere,
all these kind of things. So how do you work around that, and what's the importance of changing your approach to continue making progress for months and years on end when you've already been in the gym for 5 or 10 or 15 years?
Sure.
Like us, the dinosaurs.
Right.
Longer.
So my question is, there's got to be several ways to do that. What would you recommend is probably one of the easiest ways somebody that doesn't have to, maybe doesn't know a whole lot, would do?
Well, the first thing that I noticed what a lot of people do, and this is every gym I've ever been in, and this is what happens everywhere for most folks, is they have a certain sequence of exercises that they stick to regardless. They get in a rut, and it's like, okay, you've seen it. When they're working chest, it's always bench press, heavy
first.
as you can.
Heavy bench first.
Every
and then generally takes it over to the
years on end, and
right.
They do some incline
next. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
And then when you train legs, what is it?
Squat,
heavy squat,
leg press, leg extension.
Do one set of hamstring curl on your way out, right? Mm-hmm. Your back, it's deadlift. Well, I'm not going to go on a tyrant just on deadlifting.
Just say we can have another show to
rant on deadlifting. But anyway, what happens is, you're getting in a rut basically of overusing the same muscle and the same movement pattern again and again and again. And what we're trying to get across is that, the order or the sequence of the exercises you pick is important. And you don't have to be rigid in the exercises that you pick. And if you want to continue making progress, you would be better served changing your approach.
Right.
And so I can just get some examples if you want me to, or if you have some questions, or if you want to lead this a little better. But
my thought process is, I'm thinking about somebody that again is not a beginner but not advanced. So, what would be the most basic, probably just the basic way to go about changing something up?
Well, of course you can just, when I train a client, or when I'm training myself, I have basically two movements that I look at. They fall in one of two categories: either a compound movement or an isolation movement, pretty much for any particular muscle groups that I'm working.
And we've gone over with everybody what those are, right?
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
I don't remember how much detail I went into it, but for example, a compound movement is essentially a movement that involves more than one muscle group to perform the exercise. So if you're doing a bench press, for example, you're using primarily your chest. You're trying to target your chest, but invariably your front deltoids are coming into play and your triceps for the most part. That's kind of the three that we would look at that are coming into play.
Sure.
Versus an isolation exercise, which is just targeting one muscle group specifically, and all the secondary muscles are pretty much not firing or not involved that heavily.
Gotcha. So I guess you're isolating the muscle.
Makes sense. I can't get much more specific. Yeah. So an exercise for your chest would be a dumbbell fly, a machine fly.
Sure.
Any kind of a press is going to be a compound movement for your chest.
Because you're involving multiple.
And so one thing, you can do is, and again, it goes against most gym logic, I guess, is, maybe do flies first.
But won't I be tired for my super heavy bench press set?
Yeah, you're going to have to leave your ego at the door, and you're not going to bench press as heavy after that. But it does serve more than one purpose. I mean, for one, when they used to call this, I don't know if it's still referred to as this, but this might be an old Weider principle or something from 1970s.
I know where you're going with this, yeah.
Pre-exhaust.
Pre-exhaust, yeah. That is a Weider principle.
And so basically, let's say you're doing a dumbbell fly first. That is isolating the chest. So you're getting 100% more or less, for the sake of argument, activation in your pecs and very, very little in your front delts and your tricep. When you then move on and go to, let's say, your flat bench press later in the workout, maybe it's the next exercise in the sequence of selection there, your pecs are going to be very fatigued already from the work that you did on the fly. But since they are already pre-fatigued, they have a much higher chance of getting fully stimulated by that bench press and not giving out prior to your triceps or your front delts.
Right. So because and then what that is basically is, it makes, theoretically speaking, it makes your 1 rep max heavier or lower. Therefore, you lift lighter. Therefore, you don't fatigue the other muscles, which will make it's almost like when you're pulling something heavy and your grip isn't as strong as your back, like on a row or something. Same thing. If you're trying to push something away from you and your triceps aren't very strong, but your chest is pretty strong, then you're setting yourself
There's
up.
a weak link there for most people,
right?
And you're trying to avoid that weak link given out before the area that you're targeting, in this case, the chest.
I get it. I got it. So that means basically your pecs will be closer in strength to your triceps. Right. Obviously it's a much bigger muscle, so not necessarily, but they'll be, your chest will be tired, your triceps tire quicker, so they might kind of be closer together.
It's just a way to try to get a little more out of it.
Right.
Now, there's other benefits to that, though.
Okay.
There's other positive, outcomes from that. One is you're not having to use as much weight on that bench press, that compound movement. Therefore, you are putting less stress on your joints.
Okay.
And so, again, if you go into the gym every Monday and you do bench press heavy for weeks or months or years on end, there's a good chance that eventually your shoulders or something's going to give out. Tendinitis is going to set in the shoulder. You're going to tear a pec. You're going to just halt your progress entirely for the most part because you're just not changing things up enough to stimulate growth. So it's injury prevention, right?
Right.
You may get more development out of it. I mean, your actual
Sure.
chest muscle in this particular argument, it may grow more because you're getting a better
stimulus. Yeah.
Stimulating that more efficiently.
Well, and in the whole grand scheme of things, if you are looking to turn that corner into growing a bigger pectoral muscles, you have to squeeze the muscle with the lifting of the weight. And when I find when it's pre-fatigued, I'm able to squeeze the muscle more than just because there's
you feel it better.
Yeah, you feel. There you go. That's what I'm trying to say. You feel it better. You don't just put the weight up because that's what you do. You don't just throw the weight up there. You want to let that muscle squeeze. Let the fibers squeeze in order to actually lift the weight up.
Right.
And that might be way advanced, but
people need to think about these kind of things when you're doing the exercises. The sooner you can start getting that, again, we're going back into the archives of Joe Weider, or probably before. You always hear the mind-muscle
Arthur
connection,
Jones, yeah.
or visualization. That's really what you're trying to do there. Is you're trying to figure out how do I get this particular muscle to contract 100% and take as much stress from this movement as I can.
Right.
How do I minimize the stress in other areas and target it to whatever area whether it be your quads or your pecs or your lats or whatever.
Right. So now, won't changing up the order of operation for my sets or for my exercises, will that screw me up in the long run? Will I ever go back to what I did before, or is it going to be something that always changes?
Well, I think it should be something that changes frequently, but you have some parameters when you train that, you're inside of this box, but there's a lot of variety inside that box. And so you're always training with a certain system. It's, so I explain it to people when you train, I think, correctly for muscle growth, not for powerlifting or for just an athletic event or something like that. I'm talking about specifically you want to build more muscle continually over time. And try not to get injured and so forth. I'm not so concerned about the strength aspect.
Right.
And I lost my train of thought. What was your question? Will you ever go back? Yeah, you will. But what may happen, for example, is you just alter your workouts just enough so that maybe you do a particular chest workout today, and maybe you're putting triceps with that, for example. You may not do that exact same sequence of exercises again. I mean, exactly the same way for 6 months or a year.
Right.
You just subtly change just enough each workout to where it's just a little bit different, but yet to the average person viewing, I mean, it's the same thing.
Right, sure.
I mean, it's not really nothing dramatically different, but there's so many little variables you can tweak in your training to keep injury free and to keep making progress that do not involve. I mean, what we're trying to do here essentially is increase intensity without increasing weight on the bar.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of what you're trying to do. You're trying to take another route to get from point A to B, but it's a little less traveled.
Yeah.
And it's a little more thought. A little more thought goes into the design of the program.
Right. So let me ask you this. As I'm training and things with, again, I'm taking a step out of my norm and I'm moving things up. Describe what you mean by the by training in that box. Is that, still